And recently, I had this passage of Scripture I wanted to talk to the kids about. And I thought, I'm going to do this kind of a different way. So I got this can of salt that at the dinner table came out a little better than this can is coming out right now. But you get the idea. I got this can of salt, and I went to our dinner table, and I poured it down one side all the way to the other of the dinner table. My wife loved it. Just this big, long thing of salt. And then I said to the kids, use your imagination for a moment, and I want you to pretend that this line of salt, that my apologies to the recovering addicts in the room, I'm not meaning to make you stumble, that this line of salt, let's pretend that it starts at one end of the table, and it goes off the other end of the table, and it just keeps going, and it goes out the window, and it goes out of our yard, and it goes out the field, and this line of salt just keeps going. It goes all the way up through Dallas and up through Oklahoma, makes it all the way, goes past Grandpa's house in Illinois, and just keeps going and wraps itself all the way around the world, and just keeps going, and you can never find the end of this line of salt, this little tiny grains of salt, right? And then I had the kids and us, we picked up, I said, just pick up one grain of salt, just one. Just one little tiny grain of salt. And I know you can't see this, but trust me, I have a little grain of salt on the end of my finger. And I said this to the kids. I said, that grain of salt is your life. And this grain of salt is my life. And that's all we get. We get one grain of salt. But eternity is this big, long line of salt. This big, long thing that just keeps going and going and going. And you and I, we get one salt. Some people's grain of salt is a little bigger than others, but it's still a grain of salt. Some people are smaller, but it's just a grain of salt. And then I said, okay, now look at that little piece of salt. I think I lost it. No, there it is. Look at that little piece of salt. And Scripture says you and I have a choice. We can either live our lives for that piece of salt and pack as much as we can into that piece of salt, or we can live our lives for the big, long line. For the whole deal, with an eternal perspective. We can either live our lives with a temporal perspective, just for that little tiny piece of salt, or we can live with an eternal perspective, with a perspective that transcends all that's here and now. I didn't use the word transcends at the dinner table, but that's all that's here and now. We can live bigger than that. And I said, which would you rather live for? Would you rather just live for one little tiny speck of salt, or would you rather your life be about living for the entire thing? That's innumerable, that you can't count? It's kind of a no-brainer.